So welcome everybody to the next session on the Shulchan Aruch Series, and we're still in Netilat Yadayim, the laws of washing your hands in the morning, and we are on the second halacha, which says Yidaktek la'aros aleihem mayim shalosh pa'amim. One should be careful to pour upon your hands water 3 times, laha'avir ruach ra, to remove this contaminated spirit or damaging spirit, sheshura aleihem, that is dwelling on them, that is enveloped on them. As we mentioned in previous classes, that when one sleeps, a portion of their highest level of their soul departs, and it's as if you, as if part of you died. And we know that whenever there's death, there's this spirit of tumah that enters the vacuum, and when you wake up and your soul returns, so then it departs from your extremities and it leaves a little bit of residue on the fingertips, and therefore you need to wash it to get it off. So the Mishnah Berurah explains, we'll get to it. Yidaktek, this is Halacha Series Yadayim Dalet, Halacha Bet. He says, the Mishnah Berurah explains on the word Yidaktek, one should be careful, and he mentions Ki chutz mehata'amim hanizkarim. Aside from the reasons we mentioned already in number 1, actually in Sif Katan Aleph, meaning the sub-paragraph 1, he says that you need lito yadav l'tefillah, right? The reasons we mentioned that you have to wash your hands for prayer. Sarich lito gam mishum ruach ra. So do you remember when we talked about maybe 4 reasons, when the Mishnah Berurah himself said there's only 2 reasons, and we saw with our own eyes 3, and here's the 4th. The 4th is because of the ruach ra, which would literally be translated as an evil spirit. But we know that this is a contaminated spirit or a damaging spirit, and we should really let the word sink in, that we want to get rid of it. Anyway, it remains on the hands. Ach hecha dahanatiluhu mishum ruach alavad lo mitaknim al ze bracha. But he wants to let us know that the bracha that we make on Netilas Yadayim was not because of the ruach ra. It's because of the other things we mentioned in Sif Aleph. But why do we wash our hands? Also because of the ruach ra. But the bracha was not instituted because of the ruach ra. L'chein anu tzrichim gan l'tamim hanas. That's why we also need the additional reasons that we mentioned above. And he says you pour upon them. He says v'yitleim l'chachila ad perek hazroa. The perek hazroa is your wrist. Okay, so the best way is to pour enough water that it reaches all the way to the wrist. But I'll tell you, the truth is that in today's day and age, where we have running water and plenty of it, it should never be a problem to do this. But if you're in a place, let's say you're camping and you have very limited amount of water where you're at, we'll see there's another minimum. Because we just talked about the maximum, it should be at least up to your wrist. But let's say on Yom Kippur or Tisha B'Av, when we don't wash, so then we'll wash only until our, I don't know what they call these things. Knuckles? Your knuckles. Okay? You only wash, in other words, get the whole finger. All the fingers, including the thumb, of course. So he says, do it until the wrist. Im ein lo mayim, if you don't have enough water, if you don't have it right, dai ad kishrei etzbotav, until the knuckles. And then he says also, you need to spread out your fingers, or it doesn't really say fingers, let me just say what he says, and then we'll translate it. V'tzarich lishpot hakapos kapi kami shirotz l'kabel davar. In other words, your hand should be outstretched as if you wanted to receive something. You don't have a tight fist when you pour the water over it, because then the water doesn't get into your fingers. You need to have your fingers out like this so that you can pour and it can reach all the fingers. And then he says, "V'yagbihem keneged harosh," and then you raise them parallel or against your face, right, in front of your face. It says in front of your head. Gam to ladiach piv. As we mentioned before, it's also a good thing to wash out your mouth. And on a tainus, meaning on a fast day, whether it's Yom Kippur, Tisha B'Av, or any other rabbinic fast day, you should not wash out your mouth. Okay, so on fast days, we do not wash out our mouth. I'll tell you while we're at it, if you have a very bad taste in your mouth, so there are lenient opinions that would say that if you put water in your mouth, just don't lean back to swallow. Wash your mouth out and make sure you don't swallow anything. And that would be according to the lenient opinions, but again, only if it's so uncomfortable. Anyway, going back to the idea that you wash, it says 3 times. He says, even if you pour a tremendous amount of water, let's say, we're going to talk about the minimum amount, but if let's say you had a cup that was 5, 10 times the amount, it doesn't help just to pour that. It actually literally has to be poured 3 times. I'll just read the words again. There's something unique about the 3 times, the washing and the pouring, that will help get rid of this spirit. Dahainu. Pam achas al yad yamin, you first pour 1 time on your right, and afterwards on your left, until 3 times seirugin. Seirugin means in a every other pattern of every other. Okay, of switching. Now, according to Chabad, right, that's a Sefer Maaseh Rav, he writes 4 times. And you'll see the same difference when we wash for bread. We wash 2 times, and Chabad washes 3 times. Meaning three pours. And the reason why it's brought down by Chabad, because they hold that 3 times only removes the Ruach Ra, but the 4th time will then remove the water that has become contaminated from your hands. Women should also, they need to wash their hands, and they should be very careful about this, also 3 times, just like men. And what happens is, they're most likely, I shouldn't, there's misogyny and all this stuff, but because they involve themselves a lot with food preparation, and we don't want the food to become contaminated. So anybody that touches food needs to wash their hands 3 times from the morning already. Of course, even before you touch the food, it would be great to wash your hands once again. But in the morning, to make sure you wash your hands to get rid of the Ruach Ra. And also, the children should be careful. We have to make sure to wash our children's hands as well in the morning. They also touch food. Now, it does say this, and I'm going to tell you, I'll say in Hebrew, V'negiat akum b'machlim b'lo netil yadayim ein lechush d'lo mekable tumah. How am I going to translate this? That when it comes to non-Jews, and maybe it actually means idol worshippers, we're not sure, but let's say non-Jews, when it comes to their touching food, there's nothing to worry about, because there's not the same level of impurity that is that's by them. I'm just reading the words, okay? I don't know if we want to comment on that, but there is, in terms of, like, say, Tuma Met, right? When a person dies, there is a difference between when a Jew passes on, the level of impurity that exists is different. There still is impurity by a non-Jewish person. It's just nowhere near the same level. Okay, so I'll give you an example. Touching. If a Jew touched a non-Jew, or he touched a Jewish body, he becomes Tuma Mate. But if he walks into a tent or a room, but he doesn't touch the body, so only by a Jew in a tent would he become impure, and a non-Jew doesn't carry with the dead body the same amount of impurity. And according to our logic that we said, it had to do with the vacuum that was created. Remember, we talked about Tumah in general. So it could be, we're talking about a difference in the neshama, a difference in the soul. And that would be really difficult to explain. But Hashem knows what he's doing. So these are the rules that we have. And of course, when someone converts, then they have the same soul, a Jewish soul, and they have, unfortunately, when they die, a greater amount of vacuum and contamination that enters, just like as we expressed in previous classes. So, and maybe at this point I'll ask any questions or, okay. Then in the next halacha, it would be Gimel 3, it says, don't touch your hands before you wash to either your mouth or your nose or your ears or your eyes. I'll read in Hebrew. Lo yaga biyadav kodem netila lepeh v'lo lechotem v'lo le'aznayim v'lo le'einayim. Okay? So we did discuss these ideas before, and that was because there could be damage if you had a wound, an open wound. It's not just these organs or these holes in your skin, but even an open wound you shouldn't touch. And he says, "Mipnei ruach ra hashur al yadayim yochul lahazik le'elu evarim." Because of this damaging spirit that is still upon your hands, if you hadn't washed them, it's capable or it's able to damage those organs. He specifically mentions about the eyes that even upon your eyelids, you should really be careful not to touch them. I read in Hebrew, Yesh regarding einayim, Yesh lizaher afilu al gabe einav mibechutz im efshalo. I guess only if you have like this really crazy itch you just can't get rid of on your eye before you wash, then try your best with your upper knuckle or something. Your what?
Your pajamas.
Through your pajamas, right? If you take your any kind of baguette, any kind of cloth, and use that. It could be your pillowcase, could be your pajamas. Then you could scratch your eyelids. Okay. The next halacha is Dalid for afilu misha noto yodav lo yemashmesh mipi hatba'at tamid. Okay. I don't know if you guys have the English translation in front of you. I gave you the link. But even if you did wash your hands, you shouldn't rub your bottom. Huh?
Your backside.
The backside. Too much, because it's likely to bring hemorrhoids. And then he says, Lo yoga bimkom hakaza.
Where you bloodletting.
Bloodletting. Okay, so in the old days, we don't do this, maybe... Michelle, you're a nurse? Okay, so I don't know if they do this today, but it used to be that if someone was sick, they would, instead they didn't have antibiotics to give them, if they drew blood or let the blood out by putting a leech onto the skin. So that would draw the blood, and then your body would create new antibodies or new white blood cells, so let's say new blood cells altogether, and that would help you overcome any easy sicknesses you overcome. So this is what I mentioned before about any wounds. So don't touch the place where you would have the leech. What's this word? Shemishmush hayad mazik lechabura.
The actual moving of your hands on this thing is going to damage. It's going to damage the place where the wound is.
What's the chabur is the wound.
The wound.
Okay.
You have an open wound.
Yeah. Okay. So he says down below, afilu v'kodem netila yesh oisrim miliga mipiat ba'at afilu b'mikra. Even accidentally, you really should not touch your bottom. And then he also mentions about a man's member, v'chein la'ama b'mkom hanekev, right? Even on the male member, there's a hole. He shouldn't touch that, even if he is married. We're talking about without having your hands washed from the ruach ra. And v'chein b'hagabne b'makom nekev hakaza. How much more so by any wound, as we mentioned already, because then the ruach ra can damage any hole that you have in your body, and we don't want that to happen. We should do hay. Let's do hay. That's 5. Lo yoga begigat shechar So this is like in general about food, or here it's talking about beer. You have a barrel of beer, so you shouldn't touch these big containers of liquids. We're talking about foodstuffs. Shemishmush hayad mafsid ha-shechar. You know, the movements of the hands are going to end up causing an entire loss because how is there to fix food? Let's say, for example, one touched an apple before they washed their hands. That apple can be washed 3 times, and you get rid of the ruach ra. What about bread? It would ruin the bread. So this is the same thing. You have liquids. There's no way to fix the liquids. There's just no way to fix the liquids by pouring, water over 3 times. So a solid food like an apple, a pear, anything that you could wash without damaging it, then you can wash it. If it's something that you cannot wash, it's a complete loss. It's lost. You can't eat it anymore. Okay, so we'll pick this up next week with the following part of the series of the Shulchan Aruch.